World War I was the world's first introduction to the violence and horror of modern warfare. With the introduction of machine guns that mowed down entire battalions of soldiers, and the invention of mustard gas that caused severe chemical burns that left many permanently disfigured or blind, the loss of life in the Great War was staggering. The war killed over 16 million people in total, with the First Battle of the Somme claiming over 1 million lives alone. However, even in the darkest of times, there is always some light. There were moments in the war which showed the true beauty of humanity. The poetry of Wilfred Owen, Siegfried Sassoon and Ivor Gurney were born out of true horror, but some comfort can be taken in what they created. And then we have the most incredible showing of emotion possible in wartime, the Truce of 1914. The Christmas Truce was a unique event that we will likely never see again in warfare. It happened because of the trench warfare, which was unique to World War I. Opposing soldiers lived very close to each other, separated only by a thin patch of no man's land in between the trenches. Oftentimes no man's land was only a few hundred metres across. Both sides were also predominantly Christian and both celebrated Christmas, war or no war. So when one side heard the other start to sing Christmas carols, they joined in. It was a moment of solidarity between sides. Eventually the first opposing soldiers tentatively began to creep out of their trenches and came face to face not with an enemy soldier, but a fellow human being. One soldier, Oswald Tilley, wrote to his parents on the 27th of December, saying, "On Christmas morning, as we had practically ceased to fire at them, one of them started beckoning to us. So one of our Tommies went out in front of our trenches and met him halfway amidst cheering. After a bit, a few of our chaps went out to meet theirs until literally hundreds on each side were out in no man's land, shaking hands and exchanging cigarettes, chocolate, tobacco, etc. Just you think that while you were eating your turkey, etc., I was out talking and shaking hands with the very men I had been trying to kill a few hours before. It was astonishing." The truce was not unanimous along the trenches, and even in places where it did take hold, it was handled differently. Some areas were more respectful and sombre, simply allowing both sides to collect their dead from no man's land and bury them. Other areas, however, engaged in a lot more fraternising between soldiers, as they swapped souvenirs and told stories of their families to the other side. The Christmas Truce is well documented, and unsurprisingly caused a huge issue for the higher-ups, who didn't want their soldiers fraternising with the enemy. The soldiers didn't want to go back to attacking these people who they had enjoyed the company of just a few short days before. However, sadly the truce was ended as the soldiers were told to start firing or be shot as deserters. So they did. They fired their guns, but not aiming to kill, just to appease their superiors. One soldier, Herr Lang, summed it up perfectly. "We spent that day and the next day wasting ammunition in trying to shoot down the stars from the sky." The most famous event from this truce, however, has to be the football match. It is an event that has been spoke about for decades now, and has become a symbol for the truly amazing event that was the Christmas Truce. However, it did not happen the way a lot of people think, if it actually happened at all. I'm sure that many people think of this infamous football game as being between the English and the Germans, with 11 players on each side playing the full 90 minutes. I mean, clearly that didn't happen. That would involve a lot of planning, and likely would result in a large amount of documentation as soldiers wrote about it in letters and diaries. But actually, evidence of a football game taking place at all has very little evidence to support it. Several informal games between small groups of soldiers may certainly have happened, but without real proof it's hard to verify who actually played. But a large organised game between the two sides almost certainly didn't happen. Now, for a long time historians doubted that the game happened at all. Chris Baker, author of The Truce, The Day the War Stopped, believed it was more of a case of the English sides playing football during the truce. He said there are 2 references to a game being played by the British side, but nothing from the Germans. If someone one day found a letter from a German soldier who was in the area, then we would have something credible. Which makes sense. If no Germans mention a football match, then it's hard to argue that a match between the English and the Germans actually happened. However, there is evidence from a German soldier. Lieutenant Kirk Zemisch said that the English brought a soccer ball from their trenches, and pretty soon a lively game ensued. How marvellously wonderful, yet how strange it was. However, how did this exaggerated story of a proper game even begin? Well, one reason for the widespread story of a full football game is due to the war poet Robert Graves, who collected a range of stories and added his own dramatisation to create the story Christmas Truce, published in 1962. In this version there is a full game between the English and the Germans. In his version the Germans beat the English 3-2. So there we go, some kind of football game did take place between English soldiers and at least one German soldier. It's still very likely very informal and probably didn't last all too long, but it did happen, and that alone is a fantastic thing. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please could you click like, share it amongst your friends, and click subscribe if you like more content like this. I've also set up a Ko-Fi account, so if you ever watch one of my videos and you'd like to say thank you and buy me a cup of coffee, you can do that. There is a link in the description. Thank you for watching, Merry Christmas, my name is Rob, and I will see you in another video very soon.